Hello, my name is Rafael Santiago, and today I'll be presenting my final project. For this project, I chose to take a Sigmund Freud psychoanalytic approach to analyze the Joy Luck Club, which exists both as a novel and a film adaptation. To start, the Joy Luck Club is a collection of interconnected stories that is centered around the relationships between four Chinese American daughters and their immigrant mothers. The novel is structured into four main sections. First are the mothers' own past, their lives in China before they immigrated. The second are the daughters' childhoods, growing up in the US, caught between the cultures. The third are the daughters' adult struggles and conflicts, dealing with identity, relationships, and career challenges. And the fourth is mother's advice and resolution, where understanding and healing begin to take place between the mothers and their daughters. The narrative places a strong emphasis on Jingmei Wu, who serves as a connecting thread between the mother's stories and the daughter's experiences in real time. The novel explores cultural identity, intergenerational trauma, memory, and the difficulty of communication between people who are shaped by vastly different cultures. My main thesis is this: the Joy Luck Club deeply explores the impact of trauma, how it forms, how it manifests, and how it affects relationships between mothers and daughters. Most importantly, it shows how trauma is often inherited, passed down from one generation to the next, and repeated ever onward. This recurring pattern of inherited trauma reveals itself in subtle ways, through emotional distance, communication gaps, and mirrored behaviors. Much of the pain the daughters experience isn't just their own, it's a continuation of unresolved trauma from their mother's past. To better understand how trauma appears in these family dynamics, I looked at two academic studies that focus on the psychological effects of immigration and displacement. Both studies emphasize that migration often amplifies trauma due to acculturative stressors, which are the psychological strain of adapting to a new culture. These stressors include things like learning a new language, facing racial and cultural stereotypes, and the feeling of being alienated in a foreign environment. Over time, this cultural tension and emotional strain accumulate. The mothers, having endured both personal trauma in their home countries and the difficulties of immigration, unknowingly pass on parts of that trauma and stress to their children. This inheritance of trauma is especially impactful because the daughters are not fully aware of their mother's pasts. What they inherit isn't just cultural pressure, it's emotional baggage that's hard to name and it's even harder to process. One example of this emotional inheritance is Lena and her mother Ying. Ying is deeply passive. She believes that her life is determined by fate, and her experiences with her first husband have left her emotionally withdrawn. This worldview is passed on to Lena, who has difficulty asserting herself and tends to let life happen to her rather than take control. This dynamic is supported by the attachment theory, which suggests that children form deep emotional bonds with their caregivers and internalize aspects of their caregivers' behaviors and psychology. In this case, Yin Ying's silence and fatalistic outlook are unconsciously mirrored by Lena. Yin Ying's trauma stems from her own broken spirit, shaped by loss and cultural expectations, and Lena ends up reflecting that emotional instability in her own adult relationship, especially in her unhealthy marriage. She's inherited not just her mother's silence, but her inability to stand up for herself. Another recurring theme is how trauma, particularly from a sense of powerlessness, can result in a need for control in later relationships. This is seen clearly in the relationship between Lindo Zhang and her daughter, Waverly. Lindo was forced into a marriage at a young age, stripped of agency, and expected to follow traditional roles without question. After escaping the marriage and immigrating to America, she regains control over her life, but this need for power manifests in how she raises Waverly. While she does love her daughter, she exercises authority in subtle, critical ways that, often without realizing, the pressure she's putting on Waverly. Waverly herself inherits her mother's competitive nature and perfectionism, but also lives in constant fear of disappointing her. She often feels like she's locked in a competition with her mother, craving her approval while resenting her judgment. This emotional tension creates a sense of alienation, that a distance between them. A later psychological study I referenced noted that individuals who have experienced powerlessness often develop heightened anxiety, and that stress can easily transfer to those closest to them. In this case, Lindo's unresolved trauma and fear of losing control are projected onto Waverly, creating a cycle of tension and misunderstanding between them. Despite the weight of inherited trauma, the Joy Luck Club also explores post-traumatic growth, a theory which proposes that people who have experienced trauma can ultimately emerge stronger, more empathetic, and more self-aware. According to this theory, 5 areas of growth are often reported. The first is the appreciation of life. As the story unfolds, we see each of the daughters and mothers come to appreciate their lives and each other more deeply. The second is improved relationship with others. Communication opens up, understanding replaces judgment, and the daughters begin to see their mothers as actual complex individuals, and vice versa. The third are new possibilities in life. A symbolic example is when Jingmei travels to China to meet her long-lost half-sisters, which opens up new emotional and cultural doors for her life. The fourth is personal strength. Characters like Lena and Waverly find their inner voice. Lena begins to assert herself, while Waverly has a shift in how she perceives her mother. And the fifth and final one is spiritual change. Each family undergoes a shift in emotional awareness, healing not just their relationships, but their own sense of self. The end of story doesn't erase the trauma, but it transforms it. Healing doesn't mean forgetting the past, it means finally understanding it. In conclusion, the Joy Luck Club is a story rooted in trauma, both personal and generational. Through the lives of these mothers and daughters, we see how trauma can manifest in silence, passivity, control, and alienation, but we also see how it's overcome. These women, though shaped by pain, learn how to grow beyond it. Through connection, empathy, and reflection, they begin to understand themselves and each other more deeply. They don't erase the past, but they build a better future on top of it. Thank you.